Amid a historic hunger crisis in which more than 1 in 10 Torontonians now rely on food banks, City Council has declared food insecurity an emergency across Toronto. Now, here to discuss more is CEO of the Daily Bread Food Bank, Neil Hetherington. Thank you so much for being here this morning. I appreciate it.
It's good to be here.
I guess just to start, what does this declaration mean for the food bank, both in the short term and the long term?
Well, I think it's an outward expression that we have a serious crisis, and that our city council is worried about that, and worried about the 1 in 10 Torontonians who now have to rely on the Daily Bread Food Bank in order to get by. And it never used to be this way. We've always sort of had Toronto the good. And now we have a situation where in our city, 1 in 10 Torontonians. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. And we know there are policy solutions to it. And so it allows us to be able to have greater conversations about those solutions and move forward with them.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people in the city might be wondering, how do we ensure a declaration like this isn't just words? What tangible action can it lead to?
Yeah, so as the mayor made that announcement, at the same time, she talked about a student nutrition program. And so she said, we're going to get to a universal student nutrition program, just like the other countries in the G7. And so that was one outward action she could take. But we're in an election cycle provincially, and we can debate all we want about whether or not calling an early election is good, or we can use this as an opportunity to stimulate a conversation about getting folks who are on disability to at least an opportunity where they can thrive in community. Right now, if you're on disability, you receive about $1,300 a month, and so you have to rely on a food bank in order to get by. We can stimulate a conversation about affordable housing, and yes, 14,000 houses were built, rental houses were built in the past year, but at the same time, hundreds of thousands were needed. And so let's have those conversations, but much more importantly, let's start to take some action.
Yeah, $1,300 a month. No one can survive on that. You mentioned the provincial election cycle. We're also possibly looking ahead to a federal election this spring. I guess what would what would your message be to both the provincial candidates and those who will be vying to lead Canada?
There are 8.6 million Canadians who are food insecure. So their right to food is not being realized. So let's just make sure that people's rights are being realized. And so at the federal level, I want to see the Canada Disability Benefit come into full force. I want to make sure that it's not $200 per month, but rather the $1,000 that is expected for each person who is on a disability plan. And at the provincial level, if you get decent housing built, then you don't need food banks. And so let's make sure that we get our national and our provincial housing strategies in play. And then at a local level, how do we make sure that we stimulate the economy by making sure that we're free of red tape and we can build more quickly?
The last time we spoke was in December. When the Daily Bread Food Bank was in the midst of a fundraising push. How did that go? And, what's the new year been like for the food bank?
Well, it's been really rather difficult. It took 38 years for us to get to serve 1 million clients in a single year, and then only 3 years to the point where we served just under 4 million clients. So the growth has been just substantive. We've had to go from raising $8 million a year to $40 million a year. And so it's been a real challenge. I am hopeful that as people start to get their rebate, that they will consider the Daily Bread Food Bank. There's a lot of people who don't need that food bank, and we know a lot of people who do need those checks. And so that's our hope, is that people will perhaps donate this January their rebate check to the Daily Bread.
Yeah, of course, those rebate checks, the $200 checks that the Ford government is sending to every taxpayer. I guess, yeah, if you have the means to help out the food bank, what other support are you looking for?
Well, I think the big thing is making sure that we're advocating for change. It's one thing to make sure we feed that need now. It's another to be able to talk about the systemic causes of food bank usage and really enact legislation. And to do that, is going to take strong leadership at all levels of government. It's going to take fortitude and a vision where we have a Canada without any food banks, and my hope is that we can get to that point. We used to be there. We've turned away from that, and it's no coincidence that it happened at the same time that we turned away from building decent, affordable housing across Canada.
Okay, Neil Hetherington, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Caryn.